I am Renaud Martinez. I was diagnosed with psychosis and bipolar back in 2009. And I want to talk now. This is my only story, and I'm going to try in a non incoherent way to honor the life of Claudia Ordonez. Now, I met this woman briefly, and I did not speak to her very much because of my awkwardness with conversation. You see, I'm Cuban, soy cubano, Boricua, and when I talk to people, I usually like to talk about movies. So, when I met her, she was coming into the uh, what is it? It was like an outside room. We were staying in a house that was a assisted living, a group home living. So this is where I met her, Claudia's killer, Axel. Now I'm going to tell you who he was, my assessment with him, and I can tell you that I too almost was a part of his wrath, that he was manic and going through stuff. But as I said, I don't really have conversations with people in the normal human way where you just start talking about work or this or that, and you can go off and you can have a conversation about anything. I tend to just talk about movies, 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 and a movie, and Marvel and DC, and people like John Campea and Eric Weber and stuff like that. So, what ended up happening is I've been living with my parents since I graduated, and I've been diagnosed in 2009. And I take these, I take some of these, which are risperidone, and as once again, I'm not doing justice to this video, but just listen to me. I'll get into the story. It's going to be a pretty long story. So, my first instance of getting out of this house, and I know I'm 36, and I probably look like I'm 31, 32, but I'm 36. So, basically, in May of 2022, when Top Gun Maverick came out, I went around the swap shop, which is around, I'm not going to say addresses, but there's around here in Florida, there's the swap shop. And I would always go there with, with this black guy named Nathan. And we would talk to women. We'd talk to women. It was the pickup game. It was basically magnetic interactions, as the YouTube video guide said. So we would go and we talked to women, and there was success. There was a little bit of numbers. There was something, but then it wouldn't get any further to meet them because I didn't have a car and I was living in this house where 10 people lived in the house, and you'd pay a monthly fee. So I met one of the coolest guys ever there. His name was Antoine. Dude is amazing. Kung Fu. The guy knows. I think it's Gong Fu. I don't know. But the guy knows martial arts. He's amazing. He's an older guy. I think he's in his 50s, 60s. Guy was one of the most dynamic, amazing people I've ever met. And this was in May. And I'm going to get to how I met the killer. So I was meeting this guy Antoine, and there was a lot of fights when you live with these people. There's bunk beds, and you live in a house, and you get to basically there's like one shower, and if you're in there showering, somebody has to use the bathroom. You got to kind of like open it quickly, and get behind the curtain, the shower curtain. But as I went with Antoine, who's amazing, and I think he's homeless now. I don't know where he is. Much love to Antoine. He taught me a lot, taught me to focus, did a lot of great things. And I know this may seem like rambling, but trust me, this is a long video to honor her. I'm going to really get into it. So Antoine was an amazing guy. Had all these great stories. It was the people you meet. There are people that I didn't like, and there are people that I did like there. And as I move on, That was in May, and then I ended up coming back here. So then now, in November, I kind of had a manic episode, and I got kicked out. Uh, and basically, what ended up happening is I got into a fight with my mother. I didn't physically hurt her in a way that, because if you look at this, just look at this arm, very skinny arm. So if I smack somebody, it's not going to hurt that hard. But she's an older woman, so you know, we got into a little bit of an argument, and it was just too much living here and chores and things and annoying as anyone would go through. So I got into an argument, and then uh, I was sent to the home, and then I had my roommate, who was this killer, Axel. Now, the first thing you're probably going to think is that I'm going to say, oh, this guy was psycho, he was a bad person, blah, blah, blah. But you should get to know the true story of what happened and my perspective on everything that happened. And basically, Axel was what ended up happening, and this is just my perspective on it. Axel was I don't he wasn't married to this woman, but he called her his fiance. I read about it now that he had met her a year prior through Facebook. And what was going on was that this is what was going on is I was his roommate, and we had two bedrooms in the room. And it was I only was with him for about, I think, 2 months. So what was going on was that this was a guy, and I'm not being a snitch, and I just want to tell the story, and whenever I can put it out there, I'll put it out there. Axel was really failed by the system. He was failed by the system. And I can tell you right now, for a lot of people, I don't know what his side of the story. We'll never really ultimately know now what him and this girl were arguing about or what happened. But I'll tell you how things led up to it. Uh, they were arguing over the fact that um, he was liking pictures of other women. So on Facebook, what would end up happening is he'd have his phone, and he'd like a picture of another girl or talk to another girl, and he'd be basically talking to other women, not on the phone in terms of a conversation, but in terms of like liking the picture, talking, things like that. I don't recall any conversation he had with another girl ever. I can't recall that he was talking. I don't know any names of any girls he was talking to, but I know as a man, we look through our phone, and we see women. So we kind of had you know how they say, I don't know what the term is, but when your eyes are constantly looking at women, and you just get fixated and you talk to women, I think it's, for most people they say it's a sweet tooth. I don't know what it's called. I know the black people have a term for it. Uh, there's the male gaze, I think is what it's called. It's not gay as in gay, but gaze, Gaze. So anyway, um, he was constantly getting likes, and I saw this was an amazing thing that I if you've ever gone through this, he was constantly getting his number blocked by this girl, and she was blocking him, and she's dead now, and we wonder, would she still be alive now if she had kept him blocked. And there was a lot of love between them. I'm telling you, there was a lot of love between them. That do not think that this guy was just like there was love between them. Because, and I saw this, what was going on was that there was jealousy. It was jealousy. And he had even told me in his own words, it's like, yeah, it's like I wanted to be my fiance, and like I would be in the room, and like I would respect his privacy. I literally, when it was raining one night, I was outside with an umbrella, waiting while he was in there talking to women or doing whatever he was doing, because I felt like I didn't want to be in the bed all day and just be inside of, because I'm here and I'm in a bed. All I do is kind of just sit in bed. So I was like, nah, I'll go outside because I don't want to hear the conversations. And I'll tell you why I didn't want to hear the conversations, because they were pretty damn good. This guy really knew how to talk to women. He really knew how to be smooth and debonair and things like that. And say what you want. The guy had pickup game. The guy had pickup game. He was able to talk to women. And, if you look at him, he was a very heavy set guy. I'm a very skinny guy. He was a little bit on the heavier side. But, this was a guy who was, and I'll get into the things that I went through with him. This is my story of Axel. As I looked at him, I was like, man, this guy could have had, I can't say could have, because I think the case is still ongoing. We don't know what happened. But he definitely murdered her. So he murdered this woman. So he's not going to be. He's obviously going to spend probably the rest of his life in jail, or maybe 20 to 30 years in jail. But as I looked at him, when he had pickup game, he would talk to her, and I saw that he had obsessive compulsive disorder. That he was constantly like what ended up happening was we'd come into the room, and I would take my sandals off, and he would track in dirt, and then he wanted me. Basically, I was kind of like basically if this was a prison, I was basically kind of the bitch. But he wasn't. He treated me with respect. He didn't make me his bitch or anything like that. There was nothing that went that way. But I basically he'd tell me to clean up, clean up, clean up, clean up, and I was lazy as fuck with my cleaning. I mean that's I kind of and the reason I'm talking about this, I know I'm kind of rambling and going all over the place, but I kind of feel like, damn, what if I would have stayed there? Could things have been like, did this? I don't know why this happened. It would be nice to understand in court why this happened, getting a perspective of what happened. But I was always hearing him on the phone. I was always hearing him on the phone talk to her. They'd be arguing. They'd be arguing. They were so passionate and arguing and arguing. And they'd go on. Then there'd be love, and they'd be talking. I can't detail what was said, but it was just like they were a relationship. And one of the things that we would have a problem with is that Axel basically he told me a lot of he told me things that I mean this guy's he knows some amazing shit about things in the government, not conspiracy theories or anything like that, but he was talking about how I can't even get into what he said. He said something about how let me see if I can explain. It was so important. He said that something about how there's a debt for every human being that the government is supposed to pay off, that they used gold or some whole thing that he went off on. He could talk about this, and he's saying that all of us are worth billions of dollars. I know it sounds crazy, but he said it in such a way that I was like, he must have read this or somebody gave him this knowledge. He just knew about this shit. That he said that we're all worth like billions in a credit to the government, that we're not taking, like our lives are worth something, or I not it's hard it's I know it sounds crazy, but like if you just hear what his perspective was on it, I was like, damn, you're never going to be able to collect that money person to person to person. But it was a whole thing. You got to talk to him about it. I hope we could talk to him. But the thing that was crazy was I was kind of like I was, and I don't want to get too deep into the funny shit that we got into, but one night I remember we would usually have to walk because we didn't have a car. We had to walk to get cigarettes and alcohol, and we would always walk to get cigarettes or alcohol or things like that. And we were taking prescriptions and stuff, so we couldn't really be drinking, but we were drinking, and it didn't fucking matter. And as I'd say, Axel went through a lot of stuff in the war. He was in the wars. I think he was in a war in Afghanistan or Iraq, or I can't really say because I'm an idiot with my memories, But we were walking one night, and he was getting angry at me. He would always constantly say he would always get angry at me because I was always like I was terrified. I mean, I can't even imagine how to think this now, but I was terrified that he was like walking to the side, like he was walking to the side, and there was oncoming traffic, so I was always scared that he was gonna hit the traffic, and he was fine. He kept telling me, "I'm fine, bro. Why are you looking at me? Why are you this?" Like there was always a little bit of a paranoia with him. He was always paranoid at me, and he says, I can see that you're like analyzing me and this and that," and he would always tell me things like, "You're like a brother to me. I love you, bro," and I always felt like I'm just meeting you. You're a stranger. I couldn't, you know, contemplate that somebody was just immediately that, just knowing them by living with them for just a month, that we would be friends. But as I hung out with them, you know, we got into our arguments, and I always knew that I would stand my ground, but I always knew this guy was like he was a soldier. I mean, not even I forgot what the term was called, that he was. I know he went to the war, but this guy had combat training. He had knives. He had a fake BB pellet gun, and we went through so much in this month. And as I remember this thing, I would notice sometimes that he was smoking a lot of marijuana. And we basically had a situation where one of the neighbors in this area was just standing outside, because it was a black area, and kids would walk around and things, and there'd be kids next door, things would go on in the area, and I'm not from that life, but there would always be sirens and shit going on in the area. It wasn't the ghetto, but it was. I thought the houses were great. And as we would walk everywhere, I remember one time what ended up happening. I'm sorry for rambling. This is the worst storytelling ever. So basically, we had a situation where the drug dealer, he would get marijuana from him, and this guy would just smoke marijuana. He'd smoke cigarettes in the room, and then he'd take these. I mean, I will always remember he would take showers that were like 50 to 40 minutes, no lie. And I remember he would tell me, because my hygiene was so fucking stupid. I always thought I'm not a bad hygiene, but I'm basically a lazy as hell hygiene. So he would, like, I'd be taking a bath, and we were literally like, it was like a bed, and then it was like, it used to be a tool shed, and there was our bath, and basically in the bathroom he'd be like, "Yo, take your time." So I don't know if he was in there, if he was on the computer talking to a girl or what he was doing, but he wanted his free time. So I'd be in there, and I usually take about maybe 13, 14-minute showers, not fast, but I'm kind of in and out. And he was like, "No, you got to be thorough." This is so stupid that I go through this, but I was so stupid that I was like, well, maybe I should take a longer shower because I could give him some more time and whatever. But I would take these long ass showers. I remember I timed it one time. I think, and I literally after like 22 minutes, I was just standing in the shower as water was just touching my body. I wasn't even doing anything. I was like, dude, I want to get out, and I didn't get out because he was always telling me, he's like, no, man, you got to take like a 40-minute shower. You got to take like a 40-minute shower. You got to get, and he would take these long showers. I don't know if it was because I don't know. I heard specific things of why he was taking shit long showers, but he took these long showers, and basically he had a huge problem with that. He was like, he would always tell me, and it would just get me so angry. He'd tell me, look, you see this, the sink. He'd be like, the sink, man, like, you need to like clean over here, this and that, da 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 da, because you see how I'm doing it, because I'm doing it. I'm not gonna do it all the time. And I would basically be the laziest uh, cleaner, where I would clean, but I wouldn't thoroughly clean. I would not thoroughly clean it. So it's like, if it's like, I would pass a mop maybe 3 4 times, but if there was still, if it wasn't perfect, it wasn't like a hotel where hotel, you have to thoroughly clean that shit. It has to look brand new. So he would clean it and it would look amazing. I would clean it, it would look like shit. So, and that was basically what I went through. So basically, um, I would also, I was very, there was things I want to talk, there's things I want to talk about that I could probably tell you in person, but like, we were not gay guys. We loved women, and we were watching a lot of women's stuff. We had fun. We didn't watch it together, but we would talk about women and talk about certain porn stars and things like that. I mean, I tell you, we were just, it was hilarious how many times, I had to leave the bedroom. It wouldn't matter. We'd stay up late at night. We'd stay up late at night. I mean, he'd come home around 10, 11 after coming from the bus to get a job, and I'd be just sitting in the room, trying to, because I was trying to watch Wednesday, Netflix, shit like that, and we had a TV that they put in, and we had it on top of a refrigerator, a little mini fridge, and we never got to see anything. We never got to see anything because I was more of a movie person, trying to sell movies, and basically like, he'd come home and he was going through it, man. He was always like, damn, bro, I got no money, 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 I got no money. I got to pay for storage. I ended up giving him a little bit of cash, and everybody would assume that because he was a veteran, he had benefits, and he was just conning people. He was really going through it in terms of like the money, that he was like at $0, and he had storage. His parent, his mother, lived where there's a girl that I'm in love with, that she lives in that state, and basically he was going through it. And I know we were talking about sex and stuff, and like in terms of the porn star stuff, which, and I would feel bad about that, but I was into the Jehovah Witness. I was basically a Jehovah Witness, and I would talk to him about like, oh man, you should join Jehovah Witness because they might pay for you as you become a minister and go around and do things. And he's like, no, I go to this church, and we would walk places. I remember he bought me pizza, and I'm telling you, I mean, I was a person who I could get money from my parents at any time and treat everybody. And we were getting people treating us, and I wasn't being cheap, but I wasn't spending my money because I was afraid once people would find out I have money, they would always come to me for money. But um, that's some of the, I had fond memories of hanging out with him. And one night I remember he didn't have his marijuana, and they didn't lace the marijuana with any crack or anything crazy. He was smart about his marijuana. It would chill him out. He smoked a lot. He was always smoking. Every 50 seconds he'd smoke. And I remember that, I had fond memories of hanging out with him. And the reason that I left was because we got in a big ass argument. And I thought, oh man, he's either gonna kill me or we're gonna get in a big ass fight, and I'll probably be dead. I thought that because I knew that if he fought me, he would just he would overpower me and beat me, and I would have to get even more violent to clash with his brutality because he was smart about fighting. He was not an idiot. But he would always tell me, "Nah, man, I know how to." He would do security. He'd talk about his brother who was dead, and I felt like shit because I remember one time he told me about his brother being dead, and usually in a movie or in any situation in life, when somebody says someone has passed away and they start crying, you say, "I'm sorry," and I never said that. I just kind of stayed quiet, and I wanted to talk about like where people go after they die, from what the Bible says, and that he'll be better. So I just kind of stayed quiet, and I didn't really know how to deal with someone going through that grief. But he cried. He had photos. He loved this girl who we killed now, and he was someone that I think I failed him. I think I failed him because if I would have stayed around him, I can't say that I can't. I don't know. I can't. I don't know if I triggered some of this because, the last. I think a lot of it to blame is the issue of that. For I can't say what happened because we have to hear his side of the story. But yeah, it was it was so funny because I think of the things. I think of the times when you know uh, we'd be walking, and people think that I'm siding with him. I can tell you, I am not a person who thought I would ever. I knew that I would have my own life and my own world away from him, never really connecting with him, just being in a room with him, going, okay, well, I'm in a room in a bed, and you're in your bed, and when I'm out of here, I'm never going to see you anymore. But but I spent more time with him than I've spent with living with him than I've ever lived with like my own friends who kind of abandoned me, and you know and it was very interesting how like he's a killer, and I could tell you it must. I think to be honest, I don't know why this happened, but from my perspective, what ended up happening is he was in a car and somewhere with his girlfriend, and they got into an argument, I guess, or I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm reading it, and I just found about it now. And Axel talked about his name being biblical, that to be peace, and you know, I'm not saying that I'm defending him, but basically, I was the last person to be with him as a roommate, and I can tell you, it was hard. It was hard for him. It was hard, and he was this guy. This guy was security. He did security. He talked about his life as a security guard. You know, it's very interesting that a lot of people would say, "Oh, don't defend him. He's a piece of crap. This and that. Blah blah blah." But as I look at him, I'm like, "What happened? I don't know what happened," because all I know is that like I lived with him from November to New Year's, because this is what happened on New Year's. I know I'm jumping ahead, but on New Year's, something about the night that I left, I got an Uber and I just went home, and I called my family. I said, "Hey, can I come home? Because I'm gonna get into a fight with this guy, and we're gonna end up probably killing each other. Something's gonna happen because we're fighting." And what we were fighting about was that, and this is very funny, is that he came home and he was doing a whole bunch of shit that he had to do, and he wouldn't let me sleep. And I always thought, well, he's not letting me sleep. Like I'd just be in my bed, and he'd always be like, "Hey," talking in Spanish, "Habla español, dijo, habla español, habla español," and I wasn't that great at Spanish, but we'd be talking and talking and talking, and then I'd just be sitting there trying to go through emails because I actually have a studio contact system, and I would try to send with my shitty Android. I'd try to send emails to people, and never knowing I would never get a response, but I'd be like, "Oh, I'm thinking of a story, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that." And he always said, "Yeah, he would always come home and he'd be angry because he had to walk everywhere, or he was driven by his girlfriend. We didn't have a car at that assisted living." And as I saw that night, um, the last night I was there, I think it was sometime after Christmas. I think the 26th, 27th. Sometime after Christmas, I came back, and then for whatever night that I'll look at my Uber if you want the official date. I'll look at it. I left, and I got all my stuff. I had a lot of stuff. I had my suitcase, some bags of clothes, all this shit, and I left, and we were ready to fight each other. Now I knew I was gonna lose that fight, but I didn't care. I was like, all I was hoping was I just hope he doesn't put hands on me, because then I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna go to prison because I'm gonna end up hitting him first, and then he'll of course use his combat training on me, and I'll lose the fight. But even more so, not only will I lose the fight, if it, there'll be he'll be very violent with me. It's, as you can see, that he got violent with this girl, and he had a knife. So and I was just like, I just kind of said, let me just go home and get some money and go home. And I've been home ever since, and it's worked out for me with blessings that God has given me for coming up with certain stories and things, and but I can tell you, Axel and it was I wouldn't change my. I'm glad I met Axel. I'm glad I met Axel. The guy was very intelligent. The guy was. I mean, he was a security guard. He impersonated police officers. This is a guy you wouldn't think it to look at him through his. You wouldn't think it to look at him through his picture. He looks like a crazy, like me. I'm crazy as hell on my Instagram, and you just laugh your ass off at the songs I come up with. And I know I was basically as psychotic as I can be with just being an idiot at this age. But Axel was in a manic. I think he gets manic. He goes through manic episodes because he had to walk to get his pills, and also he was very good with a knife. And for him, the knife he would talk about all the rules and regulations. he talked about he had so many stories, so many great stories inside of him of things of his life, and now he killed this woman. And I tell you, in the Bible, I was, as I talk about it, um, in the Bible it says that when someone is dead, when someone dies either through a stabbing or a gunshot or a bomb or anything, or when anyone, I think when you die of old age, when you're just dying of old age of natural causes, you just die peacefully. But when you're killed in a wrathful rage, the blood cries out from the ground, and Jehovah God hears it. So Axel's going to have to go through a reckoning, a dead reckoning, as Mission Impossible, which very interesting that that's coming out this year. But he's going through a dead reckoning where he killed someone, killed a woman that he wanted to get married to. He was talking about wanting to marry her. This was passionate fight, and I'm telling you, she must have blocked him every other day. She was blocking him, and he would just change his number. He would just change his number. He went through a whole process where that I wouldn't even go through. I've been blocked from Twitter. I never even got to even get back on my Twitter because I was lazy as hell. And there were life lessons that he taught me that that I'll stay with. That it was just such an issue to judge the man as a psycho. Yes, he was. You could see him as a psycho, but I look at it like from my perspective, and this isn't me being his friend. This is not me being his friend. We parted on terrible terms, and I always wonder what would have happened if I would have picked up that phone the next day that I was home, or if I would have gone back, because I had all my stuff, and I was told, are you gonna come back? Are you gonna come back? And the next day or the next, and I didn't come back, so I never got to see Axel again. And I honestly wouldn't feel like visiting him in prison or if there's an execution for him for what he did. But I can tell you that the things this is a tragedy for the woman who I do believe it's the woman I saw. She came over. It's so weird to think that she was sitting there, and I was quiet. I was quiet, and I knew in my mind, I'm like, damn, if I was anybody else, I'd be having a conversation with her, and this would all be normal. It would just be like two people just talking, and I didn't say anything to her as she got there, and he wasn't there. I remember I even this was like a couple of days before I left. It was like she was like, "Oh, is Axel in there?" She said, "You said he was in there," and I said, "Oh yeah." I was like, I thought he was in there. I thought he was. I just assumed he was in there, and she had some lighters or some shit. I remember she got a little angry at me because she thought I had the lighters on me. She gave it to somebody else, and I was just holding them. And I guess she was like, "Oh, are you stealing these lighters?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I'm not stealing them. This girl just gave them to me. You can have them." She's like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, it was. I don't know that much about her, but I know that from just the essence of she felt very motherly. So she was a mother. I think it says she was a mother. She felt very motherly. She felt very. There was just a warmth and a presence of damn, I'm such an idiot. I don't know how to talk to this person to get a regular vibe. I'm not saying talk to her as hit on her. I'm saying talk to her as just like not as a neurotic, annoying weirdo. And I remember just thinking like, damn, who knows what would have happened if I just would have, I don't blame myself for what happened because I don't know what the circumstances were. But yeah, as I was hearing it, every time he would come home, I'd hear it from him, and you start to realize that, you know, uh, we were not, what's the word? We were dogs. Me and him were dogs. Like we were just looking for women. And I know I shouldn't say it because I was talking about Jehovah's Witness, but we were kind of dogs. We didn't get any. I didn't get any women in the apartment. I mean, the apartment in the room, but we were definitely looking at women online, looking at things. Uh, we basically loved our women, and you know, uh, for Axel now, I could say it just doesn't. It hardly, for what he did, he basically, I knew that was going to happen. I knew, like, he basically would always have weapons. And one of the things he told me, he said, I'm a weapons guy. I love weapons. Now, that doesn't mean I love weapons to hurt people. He just said that he liked weapons. He's one of these people, like, if you're a John Wick in a movie and you have guns hidden away, there's a guy who knew weapons. He was not, he saw combat. He protected this country. And I can tell you, this guy lived an entire life, and very smart guy. Was always paranoid about me. He was always like, "I feel like you're analyzing me. I feel like could you explain to me why?" And I didn't know what he was going through, but yeah, Axel Ordonis. I mean, we just I always remember that, like, uh, so many stories for that month, and they're all leaving me now because I feel like, for me, I met two very interesting people that while at my time at this assisted living group, whatever it's called. I met Antoine, who's amazing, and I met Axel. So two A's, A and A, and one ended up being a murderer, and the other ended up being like a sensei. He was my sensei, and I can tell you right now, I really tried. I'm telling you, I think it was Satan. It must have been satanic. Satan, you know how they say you believe that Satan comes into your life to ruin you? Satan must have got into him and ruined him because I was trying to bring him the Bible. I knew even when I was there, I was talking to a lot of people, and I was like, man, these people really don't like Jehovah Witnesses, and they have no knowledge of wanting to connect to Jehovah. And I was always like, something about that cross. Some guy gave him a cross, and I would always be like, you got to get rid of that. And I always remember this. I always remember this. He sat in the bathroom once, and he said it. I heard him say it. He said, yes, the name of God is Jehovah. He said something about how the name of God was Jehovah. So he was in the bathroom, and all I was thinking in my mind was like, I'm such an idiot. I don't know how to preach. All I do is think about women. I'm such a lazy piece of crap. I was like, I'm not. I know God put me here for a reason, and I can't even like function as a real Jehovah Witness because I didn't even, since I started in 1999. I don't even know the teachings. I'm such a rambler and an idiot. And then I heard him say it. He said, "Oh yeah, there's plenty of names God has or something." He says, "And yeah, Jehovah is one of his names." So, unfortunately now, the mistakes were made, and more than a mistake, the wrath of God is going to be on him, and this is a horrible situation. But I will also say, I know I'm not connected to this murder, but I go, damn, man, what would have happened if I picked up the phone or went back? What if I went, because I'm not doing anything here except just sitting here and coming up with some of the greatest storytelling that could possibly happen. But this woman, she's gone, she's dead, and I know I come off as a stalker to this other girl, and I remember it was just like, wow, everybody was looking at me like, you're a piece of shit who hits women. I go, no, I've never hit a woman. I've hit girls who were kids because I was pissed. I was disciplining them, and I shouldn't even be doing that. But I just look at this guy Axel Ordonis, and there were so many things about him that could have been like, I don't know. I just don't know where to go with this. But I can tell you, yeah, it's horrible. So I'm gonna pray to God on the matter, and I'll always remember I spent 2 months with a killer, and there's brilliant things that this guy had his own life and struggled. And I do think a lot of the blame could be put on the doctors. They need to blame some of the doctors too, because things weren't happening, and money issue wise, but that doesn't really absolve really from blame. I think because ultimately, if you look at it, it doesn't absolve from blame. because we don't know what happened in that car. And I honestly think that no matter what you say, there's nothing that you can say. There's like, to be honest, there's no case here. There's nothing really that you can say. He stabbed a woman, then ran her over, then he had a manic episode. This had to be something where he didn't get his marijuana or he didn't get his medication. He just went crazy because of insanity, and because he talked about how he once got shot in the head and post traumatic. But like I said, none of that will really matter to police officers or anyone, because anybody knows if you kill a woman, you kill a woman. No one's going to be defending you, and I'm not defending it. I'm just showing, you know, it's weird to talk about Zack Snyder's Superman when James Gunn just announced the DC slate, but there's a great line Russell Crowe says in Man of Steel. He goes, "I will honor the man you once were, not this monster you have become." I don't know who the hell says that or talks that way with the way I talk, but Russell Crowe really, something about that, I don't know, it's like, "I will honor the man you once were, not this monster you have become." And I guess that's what I'm doing. I'm honoring the man that I knew within, who knew the truth of God, but a monster is what he became due to Satan getting into him. So, Axel, man, I kind of blame the fact that I'm an idiot who didn't show anything to this guy. I basically I might as well have been a stranger right now, because I might as well have been a stranger to him, because, here I am, a Jehovah Witness, and I couldn't save. If I would have, I can honestly say, Satan really won this battle, because I should have been preaching to him. I should have been with the Bible, reading the Bible to him, preaching to him. I should have been a better Jehovah Witness when I'm not one. I know I'm not one, but I don't know what Jehovah is going to say about this. But, you know, I thought that I could have an ego and be like, well, I know I'm Jehovah Witness and they're awesome and they know everything. And, they're the best religion no matter what. And if I just sanctify God's name and put that out there without knowing any, like they say, faith without works is dead. Faith without works is dead. And my works, I have no works, so my faith, it's all dead. And I couldn't help anyone. And I couldn't talk to this woman. And, I feel like a fucking failure. And I'm wearing this hat because my hair looks horrible. And I always remember that he was constantly trying to cut my hair. He was just trying, He was trying. Axel was really trying. He was really, his brother being dead, being shot in the head that he said in a war. He talked about all kinds of storytelling. I mean, just storytelling is all I have from the man. It's not like he's dead yet, but I remember one time I heard about a guy saying, well, you could go to prison and Jehovah Witnesses could still find you. And I thought, who wants to do that? Who wants to be in prison with Jehovah reading the Bible? And you realize, no, man, you gotta have it. And he had tattoos. Axel had tattoos. Like, oh, he has tattoos. Blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, we're looking at a situation where, because I had the money, because I had the Uber, I was able to get out of a situation where it probably would be me that was dead, because I was going to fight him. I really was. I know I say it like everyone may think I was a pussy, or that I was, not going to fight. I knew I would lose the fight, but I was going to start the fight no matter what. And now I'll see what is said about Axel, and there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said, and yeah, that's it. So I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna say it now. I kind of don't want to say it because I don't know what's going on, but acceptance. Death, you have to have acceptance, and I can't accept the fact that I don't know what happened. I don't know why This, whether it was a manic episode, whether it was an issue of infidelity, I don't know. But I, I do feel like if I would have been a better Jehovah Witness, possibly God's governing spirit would have been able to get in this man. And I failed as a Jehovah Witness. I failed as a Jehovah Witness to bring more of God into him. And that cross, man, I know we don't believe in the cross, and we'll get into big arguments about that. But I even told him, I said, you got to get rid of that cross, man. Whoever gave you that when he was pretending to be a security guard for work, I was like, hey, man, you got to get rid of that cross, man. It's not doing you any good. So, idolatry and stuff. So that was it, and thanks.